Timber Talks is brought to you by Wood Solutions. Stay up to date with the latest in timber, the building material that is strong, safe and sustainable. Here is your host, Adam Jones.
Today we are talking with Nick Milestone and Philip Zumranen, and this is part 2 of a 2-part series. So if you haven't listened to part 1, I highly recommend you go back and listen to that first before you jump into this one. So in this second part, we are going to talk about how a holistic view is the key to enabling construction gains in timber projects and specific examples of the gains that they have achieved on some of the projects they've been a part of in the United Kingdom, and why the approach to timber buildings need to be designed from a first principles paradigm, and the opportunities for the smaller players and smaller companies to come on this timber journey, and why Australia is in the unique position to develop a sustainably sourced, solid supply chain to enable a growing market. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, this second part of a 2-part series. Nick Milestone and Philip Zumranen are really world-renowned experts, and without any further ado, here is the discussion.
I'd like to, if you can, just like through the lens of a few projects, like what kind of actual productivity you're getting through prefabrication and the difference between the on-site versus off-site productivity and where the gains might be.
Just on a pure CLT basis, I'd say compared to say concrete, straight away you should get a minimum 20 to 25% speed of increase on site and reducing the prelims. Therefore, whilst timber may cost more than, say, concrete on a cost per square metre, it's still cheaper. Sorry, not cheaper, it's more efficient because you're taking advantage of the productivity elements of it. What's your thoughts for them?
I think the important thing with productivity gains is here, it's not just the structure, it's the whole job. The structure goes up really quickly. Yes, it is faster than a concrete structure, but it's also all the follow-on trades. That's where you save a lot of money. That's where you have to look at the project as a whole, and a holistic view is really important. It's also you're reducing the noise level, the disruption to all your neighbours, and that's the biggest issue, because most of our projects are in London. And you have the same here in Melbourne or in Sydney or in other big cities in the world. It's everybody needs new housing, but we don't want traffic. We don't want noise. We don't want dust. And that's where timber construction is such a great thing. Or you're reducing your truck movement by an enormous amount. And it's also, we are much less noisier. It's easier for people to work on site. It's safer. It's dry. And the dust becomes more and more an issue, and we don't have that in the timber industry as much as you would say in the concrete industry. And that's what is interesting for contractors and developers, because you can build it quieter and faster. That means you're not annoying your neighbours that much.
So if I use Dalston Lane, if you use the actual factuals, that was originally going to be a concrete building, circa 10,000 tonnes of concrete, which equated to 500 deliveries of traffic to a construction site. When we converted it to a timber building, it came out at 1,930 tonnes of pure timber, which meant 75 deliveries to the construction site. Picking up on what Philip's just said there about dust, the UK construction industry the last 20 years has gone through a horrible cycle of fatalities associated with asbestosis. Well, the new dust is silicosis. And of course, when you're building concrete, you're drilling into concrete and therefore creates dust. You're drilling into timber, well, we don't have that much dust. So there are many, many attributes. When you compare that here to Australia and understanding the Australian market, this is heavily unionised here, yeah, which is good because it's protecting the working man, but equally at the same time, that can go against productivity as well. So what do? Then you use a lightweight material that's prefabricated off-site and maybe adapted, taking load-bearing wall conditions and having through-wall unitised panels based from CLT or timber frame. And then what you're doing then is reducing the amount of labour on site, which therefore is not reducing the union issue, because we have to protect the union issue. We just don't have as many issues associated with unionisation here in Australia.
And you will see on a timber job you have happier workers. Or, for example, we done a building in London, the High Point Terrace, where all the M&E guys, they came afterwards and said, what is your next job? I need to tell my boss, we want to win that, because it's so much nicer to work here. You do everything with battery drills, you don't have hammer drills, you have less vibration issues on your hands. As I said before, it's dry, it's warmer inside. It's a much more pleasant place to work. And this is clearly for the unions, for their members, it's much nicer to work there. And our guys as well, we employ our own workforce on site, which makes us really unique, but it's an important thing for us, and it also retains our quality. Sometimes they go away and do some timber frame jobs or do other jobs and say, oh, when can we go on to the next CLT job, on the next mass timber job, because it's so much nicer. It works, everything is well planned, it's thought through. And then I don't have all this dust, I don't have all this wastage on site, and that makes it safer, but it makes it more pleasant, because on the end we spend a lot of time working, and it should be a nice place to work. It's not a playground, absolutely not, but a little bit fun, a little bit less hard work. It's much easier, and also to attract talent, because we need people on site. And if they have to work in a nasty, grey, dark, wet environment, can we attract the best people to do that? No, I don't think so.
I remember from personal experience when I was on a concrete job doing site visits, I'd go down and I'd see some of the steel fixers at the bottom of these, huge footings, and it looks like the hardest job in the world, and they really earn their money down there.
Yeah, and we'll always have that, because we will always have a need for heavy engineered foundations design. The use of timber, because we're reducing 80% of the dead load from the superstructure above the ground, then we are impacting and making huge improvements in the efficiency of the foundations and reducing the foundations as well.
So we've mentioned a few times how we might be on the cusp of something new, and for the professionals listening, what do you think they should do if they want to become part of it? Because it sounds like it's moving to a more of a manufacturing and logistics exercise, as opposed to at the moment where it's specialised. And if I'm probably saying the wrong thing, feel free to jump in, Nick.
No, crikey, we started on a journey of being presented with a building that was designed in concrete, and then what we're trying to do is rapidly convert it into mass timber. Each material has its different characteristics. It's got advantages and it's got disadvantages. We've got timber is a lot more short spanning. So therefore, if we ever get presented with a building in concrete and say, can you turn that into timber? Well, the simple answer is no. The best way to take advantage of the material is to design it from first principles. And I think when we did Dalston Lane, that was testament to that. So, okay, I'm quoting figures that were relevant about maybe 4 or 5 years ago, not relevant to current market conditions, but we were quoting GIFA rates of around 200, 225 a square metre. Because we designed it from first principles, we actually got the cost down to £185 per square metre for CLT. That will change now, more because of the market conditions. The CLT supply chain is in very much demand, so the economics of supply and demand is the price goes up.
And we had Brexit with the change in exchange rate, which made a huge change in the prices, to be honest.
Because you import all your timber in the US. From a global perspective, say if we are on a cusp, would you like to comment on the supply from the do we have enough timber to source it sustainably?
Yeah, 4% of the world's forests are here in Australia.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. As long as it's legal and sustainably sourced, i.e. FSC or PEFC, as long as it's got a forest certification program, therefore you can then take advantage of carbon sequestration because you are sourcing the material from legal and sustainable forests. And then, of course, you've just got to increase the supply base here. Because it's great having European timber, and European timber is great because it's travelling around the world right now. But the pricing is going up, and the prices are, I would say, pretty well artificially high. Until we get more supply chain, and we need more supply chain here in Australia, for a number of reasons, lead-in times and cost.
Well, I think for everybody listening here from Australia, there is a huge chance for new companies or existing company to come onto the mass timber journey. And it doesn't mean that you need millions and millions of dollars to build a new production plant. You can also start smaller. Or our company started with 2 people, 2 laptops and a mobile phone. And now we have about 35 people in the office and about 50 on site. It's growing, and you can grow in the timber industry. You can start from small. You can do the smaller projects, and you can become bigger if you want. And it needs different companies, or companies like Exlam Australia also started small off as Exlam New Zealand in Nelson, which I visited 6 years ago, and it was a small production plant, and now they have a new plant here in Australia and all that. You can see there is a journey, and we don't need to do everything now, but we need people who come onto the journey with us, and maybe also bring in new knowledge. We will need more supply, as Nick said, but you also need competition in the market. We were competitors in the past, and on the end you can say, it's a shame because we were the first and we had the market for us. But the competition which came in pushed really the marketplace. And good competition, that's what we need. We need other people who do other projects, because we've done nearly 300 projects. We can't do all the projects. And if you have other people, they bring in new clients, they bring in new people. Don't be afraid of competition. Good competition is important, and work together. I'm not saying we because we are not allowed to talk about prices, but we can discuss issues. If we done a mistake or we came across a problem, share that. And this is so important that we can share it, not only internally, but we can share it also internationally. And I think that's where Australia did a brilliant job, because you're quite a pushy nation. You're quite you're driven by innovation, but with Wood Solutions, you have a great organization also in the country who took a lot of knowledge from Europe, converted it into Australian guidance and all that. And that, I think that's why Australia is where it is. It's together with the UK at the forefront of mass timber.
I think Philip's right. Good competition. There were 3 of us on the scene in the UK. We're seeing more companies come to market now. But what we have to do is protect the interests of the market as well, and protect the competition. What I mean by that is having standards and guidelines. So Urban, BK Structures, KLH, all members of TRADA. So we funneled that into the National Structural Timber Spec. And one of the reasons why that got written was because the UK timber frame industry was pretty unregulated. And what I mean by that is buildings were going up not within tolerance. And then if you get a bad job, well, then the client's going to walk away from that material. So that's where you don't need poor competition. You need good competition. And what good competition also does, it forces market maturity. And it establishes more supply chain, it creates more people. It's like anything, it just accelerates. It's great when we talk about Exlam Australia here, who came from the foundings of Robin Jack in Exlam New Zealand, that you've got Heinz putting a lot of weight and financial capital behind it, as long as it's for the long term and not the short term, because then they will reap that one day, and then there will be other CLT manufacturers come on board. If you look at our European colleagues, how they developed from the 1990s, and some of them they came from sawmills, didn't they, to prove added value and more route to market. Your likes of your Binder Holtz, Storenzo, KLHs of this world. And we're now seeing even more CLT manufacturers coming out, what is the new Central European belt, really, aren't we? But that's good, because then we need more supply. We're always going to get peaks and troughs in supply and demand. And the beauty of Australia being of a nice population size, you'll have more controlled growth.
With your work at TRADA, looking into the future, what is some of the exciting research you've done recently, or important research that you guys are working on for the future?
Well, like anything, TRADA is a technical publications. We're not out there lobbying on behalf of our members. We let other trade associations in the UK do that. What we do is we listen to our supply chain. We listen to our members, but more importantly, we listen to the market, and we address the market pragmatically. So now the NSTS will go through a third iteration because it will incorporate fire and fire guidance. The CRT handbook, which started out as a case study book, which is now a book which is heavily laden with detail, will go through a third iteration because we're addressing the issues of durability. We want to make sure that these buildings that are constructed in mass timber are going to be kicking around for a couple hundred years and not just for 25 years.
Awesome. And for yourself, Philip, if people want to find out more about you and Urban,
you can find a lot on the internet. We just launched a new website last year. For us, we are highly driven by R&D in our company, but we don't have an R&D department. In our company, everybody has to do R&D, and we do it on every project. Or we do a huge mix of different projects, from the small single-family house to the big multi-story project, or the big educational project like big academies and all that. And for us, it's every project is a step further ahead, and learning on the jobs, improving, and make every building better. And this is what Nick said as well, durability, fire and all that. And for us, the best advocate for mass timber are projects. We don't run huge marketing campaigns. The biggest marketing campaign for us is always when we have a big job and we take people from all over the world onto site, show them around. And it's still, you have people, they come the first time onto a construction site with mass timber. They're really surprised how nice it is, how dry it is, how quiet it is. You don't have people running around shouting, all that stuff, and that's the best marketing what we can do. And also other companies all over the world, we have to show people, because seeing is believing. Just talking about it helps, but then you have to take people, show them around and say, look, this is a real project, you can touch it, you can kick the wall, and it is properly made, and that's what we try to do.
We're blessed to be part of this journey, and what we're doing is we're creating a sustainable legacy for the future, and it's nice to be on this planet for the short period of time we are, and we're changing the landscape.
Absolutely. It feels like we're on the ground floor of a whole new market that will improve the world. So yeah, very exciting times for everybody. If people want to find out more about yourself, Nick, or Trada or Hair Group, where should they go?
So William Hair Group, we're one of the UK's longest established and biggest steel fabricator, and we're global. We have a huge risk portfolio into other markets. We've just recently launched hybrid structures, which is again putting more competition into the supply chain for the UK market. My role is to look for international mass timber projects, huge projects around the world that we built in mass timber, and collaborating with companies like Urban as well. But also my focus is director for offsite and innovation. So we're looking at all forms of offsite and ways we can integrate with other new technologies coming on board, which is all based on integrated digital delivery on that platform. Trada, so proud to be part of a legacy that's nearly 83 years old, and I will leave at some point. But when we're in, we've got it's sustainable beyond for the next chairman to take over.
If you want to use timber on your next projects, there are over 45 free technical guides that can be found on the Wood Solutions website. Technical Guide 37, which focuses on the steps to deliver a mid-rise timber building, is a good start.